In case you have not heard, our southern border with Mexico is currently an absolute mess. We've got folks from all over Central America, Mexico, and beyond going through horrific conditions on their way to the border, on the Mexican side of the border, on the US side of the border. All of this under a Biden administration which seemingly has no real plan on how to solve this ongoing crisis just days before the expiration of Title 42. The rules around all of this sort of stuff is very unclear, but let's get into first what is Title 42, and then we'll kind of get into what the expiration of Title 42 means, as well as what could potentially happen moving forward, as well as an update on what's actually happening at the border right now and over the past week or 2 weeks or so. But first, let's get to the article from the Texas Tribune. What is Title 42? Title 42 is part of the Public Health Service Act of 1944, aimed at preventing the spread of communicable diseases in the country. According to the law, whenever the U.S. Surgeon General determines there is a communicable disease in another country, health officials have the authority with the approval of the president to prohibit, quote, the introduction of persons and property from such countries or places for as long as health officials determine the action is necessary. That authority was transferred from the U.S. Surgeon General to the director of the CDC in 1966. Congress approved a similar law in 1893 during a cholera outbreak that gave the president authority to exclude people from certain countries during a public health emergency. It was used for the first time in 1929 to bar people from China and the Philippines during a meningitis outbreak. Why was it activated? The Trump administration invoked Title 42 for the first time since its creation in March 2020 as a way to help stop the spread of COVID-19 in immigration detention centers where many migrants are placed after they arrive at the U.S.-Mexico border. According to the New York Times, Stephen Miller, a senior advisor to former President Donald Trump, had pushed the idea to invoke Title 42 at the U.S.-Mexico border as early as 2018, long before COVID-19 had emerged. As COVID-19 cases rose in the U.S., then CDC Director Robert Redfield enacted the Title 42 to seal the land borders with Canada and Mexico for migrants seeking asylum on March 20th, 2020. The AP reported that then Vice President Mike Pence ordered Redfield to enact Title 42 over the objections of CDC scientists who said there was no evidence that it would slow the virus's spread to the U.S. Currently, this order is set to expire on December 21st. There are a couple cases going through the courts right now that are trying to delay this even further, but with this coming up so quickly, I highly doubt that any of these are going to go through, and that this will very likely expire on the 21st. This issue of the border in general has a whole lot of different proposed solutions to it, ranging from, there should be no one going in or out on any border ever under any circumstances to everything should be wide open. In reality, most folks are somewhere in between on that. But wherever you are politically on this, bear with me for a little bit because regardless of where you do stand politically, there are some major issues going on that you're definitely going to want to hear about. And just people being treated very inhumanely, in my opinion. Not even in my opinion. They're just being treated inhumanely along the way. So, despite the attacks from the Biden administration, or at the time then candidate Biden, of former President Trump during the 2020 campaign season about kids in cages and things along those lines, that sort of policy seems to still be happening, whether they're in cages or just in rooms that look like prisons with cement walls and floors. Maybe it's not exactly the same thing, but it looks pretty damn close to me. We've got facilities along the southern border that are meant to hold about 1,000 people in them, currently with over 4,000 people in them. Clearly, you're not going to be able to treat people the way they deserve to be treated when you've got literally 4 times the amount of people currently staying in them, and the problem is only going to get worse, as we'll see here in a second. But we've got a clip here that was leaked from GOP rep Tony Gonzalez. He leaked this out to the media with a video inside of one of those facilities. We can go ahead and play that clip. Now, obviously there you're seeing people just laying down in rows with the kind of emergency space blankets, if you will, just in, like I said, what looks like it could be a prison room, essentially. There are, further in the clip, there are clips of more rooms. And again, this is just one facility on the border that is in Representative Gonzalez's district in Texas. There are very clearly many, many more of these. And unfortunately, we actually don't really get to see inside of these. We can pull up a tweet here in a second, but DHS doesn't actually let journalists inside of these facilities, which is clearly a problem. We've got the tweet here. A reminder, DHS does not allow media into these Border Patrol facilities, so the only way we are able to see images like this are through leaks or members of Congress who visit and are willing to share photos or videos, like Rep. Tony Gonzalez did in this case. Now, despite whether or not you agree or disagree with Representative Gonzalez, the videos and images are pretty clear. It's a very, very overcrowded facility. I'm sure he was only there for a very short period of time, and even he was probably shown, they're going to, when they know a member of Congress is coming, they're probably going to try to make things look as good as they can. That's just a glimpse of what is going on, but, obviously it's a pretty major problem that DHS does not allow any journalists into these facilities, even like a supervised visit or something like that. That doesn't make much sense to me. But, as I mentioned, while you might not be seeing necessarily people in cages or something like that in this, the issue of treating these people fairly, regardless of their circumstances, is about to get a lot worse here. First, we're going to show a clip of folks who are essentially like crossing over the border illegally over the river, and then essentially being put into a line and greeted by Border Patrol on the other side. Let's go ahead and play that clip. Now, if you're going to have all of these people come across and then be processed in some sort of orderly or probably not so orderly fashion, why the hell are we making them walk across a river first? This part of Texas this time of year, they're near El Paso at this point. It's getting really freaking cold at night. You can see they've got fires and stuff going, probably because they're freezing. So we're basically like having them line up on the U.S. side of the border and go through a fence. We'll show another clip in a second here, which will give a little bit more context to this. But why the hell are we making them walk through some gross water first and then be even colder on the other side while we then eventually just take them into some sort of custody? Like, if we're going to do it, and like, again, whatever you think of the policy, if what we're doing right now is having them meet Border Patrol and then go be processed into some facility, why not just let them walk across the freaking bridge like humans? Instead, we're treating them like cattle and like forcing them across a river. Not forcing them, but having them go across a river. They've obviously traveled this far to come to the United States, so given the opportunity to go walk through and go meet Border Patrol, they're going to take it. Instead of doing the right thing and just being like, okay, if this is the policy, let's just have them walk over like people. Instead, we're kind of corralling them through the whole process like they're a bunch of animals, which they're not. They're people who deserve respect and dignity, whether you necessarily agree with the policy of letting them in or not. Again, if we're going to do it this way, let's do it the right way. Let's go ahead and play the second clip that kind of shows you what the front of the line really was like. Again, there you see, the front of that line there where Border Patrol agents are kind of like frantically telling which people can come through and which ones can't. And that's at the front of the line where you've got a massive amount of people who are just crossing over the river and then getting over there and waiting for who knows how long. I saw some clips on Twitter that I won't show here. There was a whole bunch of stuff to pull from for this, where a journalist was asking people, how long have you been waiting here? Some of them had been waiting there for over a day, 2 days. And again, it's cold out. It's in the high 30s and 40s. We're about to get a bunch of cold weather into Texas. It's about to get a much colder in these places. And I mean, it's just a really inhumane way of dealing with it. And again, if you had some sort of plan from the Biden administration of what to do, like, you could avoid all sorts of this stuff. But we haven't heard anything about what that plan might be. We're just essentially hearing nothing and kind of dodging the question. It's getting to the point where a lot of these border states are starting to take matters into their own hands. In the state of Arizona as well as Texas, you've got governors essentially ordering for shipping container walls to be built, and they've been being built over the past 2 weeks or so. We can play a couple of those clips. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that what that is a good idea at all. If anything, it's a stunt. This is Greg Abbott in Texas, and then the outgoing GOP governor of Arizona. Do I think that these are going to ultimately have any effect? No. They're probably a big waste of time. In a lot of cases, they're like pretty much destroying the environments that they're in, because these are pretty remote areas, and now you're like essentially bulldozing a road through to drive these giant shipping containers in. But again, if the Biden administration had a clear plan here and a clear agenda that was outwardly known to people, maybe you wouldn't see this sort of stuff be going on. But I will say it's not just GOP governors who are having to take matters into their own hands about what to do here. We've got the Democratic mayor of the city of El Paso actually declaring a state of emergency for his city. We can pull up a tweet here first. Breaking: El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser declares a state of emergency just days before Title 42 expires. Migrants have been sleeping on the street in freezing temps. I really believe that today our asylum seekers are not safe, he said. We can go ahead and read a little bit more about this in an article from the El Paso Times. El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser declared a state of emergency in response to the worsening migrant crisis, which has left scores sleeping on the streets in recent days. Though Leeser has long resisted issuing a state of emergency declaration, he said Saturday the move would allow the city to tap into much-needed additional resources, which will only become more necessary with the December 21st end to Title 42 expulsions. Leeser stated that the sight of people on downtown streets with temperatures dipping below freezing was the catalyst for a decision in the works on Friday night. That's not the way we want to treat people, Leeser says during a news conference Saturday evening. He added that the increase would be, quote, incredible after Wednesday, when the apprehensions and street releases could rise as high as 6,000 per day. Now, this is 6,000 per day just in the city of El Paso. There are way more places along this border that people are crossing. When you have potentially up to 6,000 people per day, and right now they are already seeing thousands per day in a lot of these videos and reports that I'm seeing, thousands per day ending up in El Paso, and not necessarily being put into some actual facility in El Paso, just going through the facility and then being released onto the streets. But you've got to remember, these people have been released onto the streets after traveling from as far as Nicaragua, Venezuela, El Salvador, Honduras, a lot of these places. Some of these countries are actually being turned away if you're one of the ones that are marked under Title 42. But countries like Nicaragua, for example, cannot be sent away for Title 42. I believe Venezuela is on that list as well. They're risking everything to get to the United States. So when they're being released on the streets, they have no money. They have nowhere to go in a lot of cases. And they're just sleeping on the streets. And El Paso is just meant to deal with this when it's clearly an issue that is much bigger than their city. This is an issue that's meant to be dealt with by the federal government. This is people coming from another country in. This isn't meant to be handled by the mayor of El Paso. It's not meant to be handled by Greg Abbott in Texas or by the governors in any of these border states. And instead of giving a shit about what these people are going through, we're shoving them through overburdened processing facilities where they might be, in there for days while they then get processed and then are released on the streets where it's below freezing at night with no resources, just being kind of sent off to these cities. It's clearly not a plan. There is no plan, and it's a disgrace. We need some major immigration legislation in the United States, or this isn't going to stop. Right now, this is bad for folks, asylum seekers. It's bad for them and dangerous. It's bad for border towns like El Paso that are stuck to deal with this. And El Paso is only one example. There are tons and tons of places along the border that are dealing with this. This is bad for Mexico, who have tons of people on their side of the border as well, essentially living in pop-up slums, waiting to try to get across. One group this is good for is cartels that are essentially, they run the network of getting people from all of these countries in Central and South America up through the Central America and into Mexico. They're making tons of money trafficking these people through. And the solutions being thrown out are nothing. I haven't heard a solution. No one is actually talking about something that has any sort of chance of getting through or anything that would actually solve the core problem here. They're even talking about different ways for people to claim asylum. Now, I'm no expert in this, but let's make the process a whole lot more clear. Maybe make it so that folks can apply for asylum in the country they're in. Maybe make it so that they don't have to run across the river and then wait in a giant line to go get greeted by Border Patrol hours later. There's no real answer to this right now. There is a real answer. It's to actually get together and do something about it, but no one is even talking about doing it. And it's just really frustrating that these people are having to go through this after escaping whatever violence or corrupt government that they're going through, risking all of their finances that they maybe had left, any money that they might have scrounged up to be able to make this trip, risking their life in many cases, trying to actually travel through these regions, traveling with the cartels, protecting them, more like robbing them of whatever money they had left, and then being left at the border. This doesn't help anyone in America to do exactly what we're doing right now. It's bad for the asylum seekers. I don't have any hope, but in the year 2023, when we have a divided government, essentially, with Joe Biden still at the helm as president, a slim majority for Democrats in the Senate, and a Republican House, I'm not optimistic that they're going to go through and get this done, but hopefully they see the problem that has just been festering for the last couple months here and is ultimately seeming to come to a head right now. We'll see if they're able to actually go through and try to do something to just make the situation even a little bit better, because right now, man, we're not seeing anything. Definitely stay tuned. We're going to be covering this as it happens over the next couple days. Again, set to expire on December 21st. In the meantime, make sure you're subscribed. You can hit that button down below. Click the bell for notifications. We'll be on top of this story, so definitely stay tuned. You can give me a follow on Twitter as well, @LewisD217. Thank you all for watching. Have a good day.